Um, in keeping with what Tom started, you would join me. I don't have any slides. I don't have any. Never remember to do them. But we're going to go from 1 Chronicles, chapter 15, 28 to 29. I'll give you a second to get your pew Bibles out if you need them. Sure. 1 Chronicles 15, 28 and 29. Oh. And it reads, "So all of Israel brought up the ark of the covenant of the Lord, with shouts, with sounding of ram's horns and trumpets, and of cymbals, and the playing of lyres and harps. As the ark of the covenant of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window. And when she saw King David dancing and celebrating, she despised him in her heart." I'm going to continue with the reading again from 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 16 and 17, then 20 and 22. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window. And when she saw David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it in a place inside of a tent that David had pitched for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before the Lord. Verse 20, when David returned home to bless his household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, "How the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, disrobing in the sight of slave girls and his servants as any vulgar fellow would." David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house, when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord. I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes, but by those slave girls you spoke of, I will be held in honor." Word add a blessing to those. When I was growing up, if I had come to church like this, a lot of you know I would have been escorted out like this by my mother and taken to that room in the church, and I'd have had my hide tanned. It's an image that we project. Project that image as dressing appropriately, being appropriately, acting, and showing an appropriate image. David didn't do that. The ark of the Lord came into the city of David. King David threw off his clothes, disrobed, and danced naked in front of God and everybody as a part of his worship to the Lord. Sometimes clothing or the barriers that we keep in front of us inhibit us from fully developing our personal relationship with God. I tried to compare the freedom of David with some of our political leaders of today, just over the past 20 to 25 years. Realized that wasn't going to work because those were just stupid and inappropriate people. So they had no redeeming values. They had no connection to either themselves, to us, and the things that they did. There was nothing that brought them closer either to God or to us by some of their actions. But with David's throwing of his clothes off, with David's releasing those barriers, then when he was done, they had offerings. They had burnt offerings and regular offerings that showed their faith and how much they loved not only God, but each other. When the celebration was over, he gave to each man and woman who was there a loaf of bread, a cake of raisins, and a cake of dates. Now, in that time frame and in that era, that was a very important thing because that was food that would last a week or two. And they all went home. Now, when David got home, he was met at the door. How many guys in here have come home at night and been met at the door? Pastor, you too? We all know that feeling. But when Mikhail starts to question his activities, question that you've disrespected yourself, you've disrespected your position by dancing in front of your servants, in front of slave girls. David replies, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone else from your house to rule Israel. I celebrate for the Lord. And as time goes on, I will become even more undignified, which means that I will express myself deeper, harder, further. My love for my Lord." And in my own eyes, yes, I'll be humiliated. But in the eyes of those servants and slave girls, I will be honored. In the eyes of God, I will continue to be loved. I've shown him that I am open to his love. I think we should try to remember on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and all the other days that God chose us. That Jesus was placed on a cross to save us from ourselves, give us refuge from sin and despair, and to provide direction live to be the light of darkness and the warmth of the cold. Have an opportunity to praise God with ourselves, with every day and every moment that we exist. Every time we interact with someone, every time we invite someone to come to church here, and that on a regular basis. Every time that we make a presentation or that we step out, every time I knock on a door for Spectrum, I not only represent Spectrum, I represent myself, and I represent my Lord. The way we should live our day, every day.